Today we are in Syracuse. We are starting a press conference with Prime Minister Donald Tusk and Minister of Infrastructure Dariusz Gnimierzak. Mr. Prime Minister, please join us.
Thank you. I'm so glad that we can write the next chapter together, our turn, here in Kashubia, in my hometown. Actually, the most hometown, as my great-grandparents come from this very area. But of course, non-family sentiment is the reason I'm here today, with my Kashubian friends, local and provincial authorities, and mayors. Today, we are opening this next chapter of our railway, beginning the fulfillment of the commitment I made in 2023. It was a meeting in Kashubia, if I remember correctly. I think it was May 2023. And once again, I don't know, maybe for the 100th time, Tadeusz Kobiela, the historic mayor of Sierrakowice, reminded me for the 100th time that the railway was coming soon, Kartuzy-Lemberg. This must become a reality, especially since we also remember how in 2020, when the Sierrakowice railway station was revitalized and opened, some wondered why European funds were allocated to the station's revitalization, yet there was no railway, and that it wasn't worth it. Some probably teased both Tadeusz Kobiela and Marshal Struck about the need for a station if there was no railway. So that was the second reason, also quite obvious, why the minister and I had to seriously address this. But there's also a strategic reason. Here in Kashubia, when we talk about revitalizing railway lines, we also have strategic goals in mind. Not only about local amenities, which are crucial for the inhabitants of this region. Needless to say, this investment, which will lead to the construction of new stations and the revitalization of existing ones, will be convenient and very useful, both for Kashubian tourism and the development of the region. But it will also be a crucial part of the strategic plan, namely the construction of a nuclear power plant in Ubiatów. Without the railway lines, and we're talking about a few sections here, this is the first phase, there would be no way this investment could become a reality. This is further proof that we're doing it, not just talking about it. If we truly want a nuclear power plant and cheaper, safe electricity, we must also build special connections here, both rail and road, because building a nuclear power plant is truly something, a gigantic undertaking. But this should also greatly facilitate the professional activation and social advancement of various groups of professionals here in Kashubia. This is an important day in Kashubia. For us, the word railwayman truly means something. Both of my Kashubian grandfathers were railway workers, my father too. But a professional also means something in Kashubia, and we have reason to be proud here. People here truly know how to work and are exceptionally reliable, and such professional strength at various levels, in various fields, including the construction of a nuclear power plant, would be very useful. If we talk so much about local content, about Polish participation in all projects, then, of course, with the nuclear power plant, it's clear that our American partners play a leading role. They have the technology. We don't yet have such technology, but we can accomplish thousands of other things with the help of Polish companies, large and small, and Polish professionals. This Kartuzy-Lemberg rail connection will also be a significant convenience. It will be part of a rail transport line that will allow hundreds, perhaps thousands of people to find interesting places and attractive jobs. This is just one aspect of our rail investments. It was crucial for me that these grand dreams, both about large airports and high-speed rail, become a reality. Along with these grand plans, the minister and I will be discussing these most ambitious technological plans tomorrow at the Gdansk Railway Fair. We must not forget about connections like the Kartuzy-Lembok line and train stops like the one being built in Kamieniec-Królewska, Mojusz, and Niehucin. They will be built or revitalized. And this very issue of connections with smaller towns is also very close to our hearts. Here in Kashubia, in Pomerania, this is a huge task. We can't have inferiority complexes about history, about the past. I'm convinced that Kashubia, Pomerania, the Tri-City region, with all its large-scale projects, large power plants, I'm talking about the gigantic investments in offshore windmills, as well as the nuclear power plant and the port of Gdansk. All of this requires integrated, synergistic work on communication. I'm very happy, not only because I'm from here, but it's of great importance for the entire country. Cheaper energy will flow from here. Connecting the port with the most dynamically developing port system on the Baltic Sea is also crucial for the entire Polish state. So here are local interests, including our Kashubian sentiments, but local interests, the potential for advancement for the region and its individuals, and the strategic interests of the state.
Thank you. Mr. Prime Minister, ladies and gentlemen, today we are launching a major railway investment of strategic importance, not only for the Polish economy, but also for ordinary Polish passengers who will finally see their connections restored after 25 years. This investment is part of the efforts to build a new, first Polish nuclear power plant, and also to restore rail connections that have been neglected and unrestored for years. This will be a state-of-the-art railway line, but also include the construction of entirely new stops, including a school here in Sierakowicz. We will also renovate 11 stops and stations, all along a 60-kilometer stretch. This morning, we signed an agreement as PKP Polskie Linie Kolejowe, PKP Polish Railway Lines, with a Polish company that will carry out investments worth over PLN 625 million gross. This is only 1/3 of a massive railway investment that will transform the entire Pomeranian voivodeship and facilitate both freight and passenger access to this part of our country, to the Tri-City area, and to key ports. Ladies and gentlemen, the Ministry of Infrastructure is responsible for all investments that will result in the construction of access infrastructure to the new Polish nuclear power plant. Roads, railways, but also the MOLF, a maritime structure, a type of seaport over a kilometer long, where large-scale components for the construction of the first Polish nuclear power plant will be brought. Components that cannot be brought here in any other way. Today, we have signed both contracts for the construction of a completely new national road in the GP system, the main expressway 2+1, from approximately Lembork towards the new Polish nuclear power plant. And what's also important when we talk about this at the Ministry of Infrastructure is that the railway project we're launching today is being developed at lightning speed. It's been 15 months since the idea, the concept, and we already have a signed contract. Soon, the company will be accepting the construction site and beginning the investment. This is a lightning-fast pace, unprecedented, and I'm very happy about it. I'm thrilled that Polish companies will be working here and will be able to implement something that's been long awaited in this area for years. Today, we spoke with local government officials from the municipality, the district, and the entire province. There are a lot of these types of investments across the entire province, and they will be implemented as quickly as possible, primarily by Polish companies. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have time for 3 questions.
Good morning, Monica Rutka, Telewizja Republika. Mr. Prime Minister, in 2021, you spoke of Sławomir Nowak's case as a political matter, and you called him a political prisoner. I wanted to ask because all of Poland saw the evidence. We saw the money hidden in the hiding places. We saw the notes. I wanted to ask whether you are happy that the court simply dismissed this case without considering it, without a trial?
Thanks to what happened in 2023, that is, thanks to the victory on October 15th, it's no longer politicians, party leaders, or the Prime Minister who decide who is guilty and who is not, but the courts. I won't delve into the details of this matter. I'm neither satisfied, nor sad, nor happy. This doesn't fall into those categories. I intend to respect the court's rulings, regardless of whether I or anyone else likes them. I'm happy that, despite the difficulties involved, this is a very difficult process, but that we are rebuilding a Poland where judgments are decided by the courts, not politicians.
It wasn't a verdict, it was just a decision.
Judgments, court decisions, no matter what legal terms we use. But I am convinced that a far better place on earth is one where guilt or innocence, the need to initiate or not initiate criminal proceedings, the dismissal of criminal proceedings. All these matters are decided by independent courts, not politicians. We would all be in a very bad situation, and my opponents would be too, if politicians in Poland decided who to imprison and who not.
Another question.
Anna Goniak, TVP, I'd like to ask about security issues and combine them into one question. First, the Czech president suggests that we could now begin shooting down fighter jets that violate our airspace. I'd also like to ask why, after so long, we still don't know how many drones fell that fateful night. And what about tenders for drone production, especially for drones? Couldn't this be shortened and accelerated, to achieve something similar to what's happening in Ukraine?
I wouldn't want Poland to be like Ukraine. We know full well why Ukraine is a global leader. When it comes to the production and use of drones, especially in combat operations, it stems from daily air confrontations with Russia. And not only Poland, but all other countries in the world, or, let's not even think about it, the United States, may envy Ukraine, not its situation, but its production capabilities. That's why I've been working for many months to ensure that this cooperation, though currently declared, becomes a reality as soon as possible. Cooperation between Poland and Ukraine, including through the use of funds from the European Safe Fund, aims to jointly produce and utilize various technologies so that the use of drones and anti-drone defense becomes not only a Ukrainian specialty, but also a Polish one. We're on the right track. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll know how many drones fell when they're all found. I understand the impatience evident in these questions, but it's not as if the Russians have informed us exactly how many drones entered our airspace. As you know, the identification and search for drones is ongoing. It's also worth remembering that these civilian drones are in fairly common use here in Poland. We've already had 2 cases in recent days where flying objects were found on the ground, that is, no longer flying, as they were lying on the ground. And it turned out they weren't objects that were part of the Russian drone aggression. We're trying to be very thorough here and, above all, not to cause panic. We'll report on any further discoveries, but as you know, at this time there's no reason to believe any of these finds pose a threat. So far, we haven't found a single instance of a weaponized drone exploding or otherwise harming residents or their property. But we're very focused on this. I don't want and won't seek any political dispute within Poland on defense matters. It must be a shared cause. I want to say that it takes time to change the way of thinking that has been quite evident over the past decade or so. And it has nothing to do with political color, but rather with routine. It will take some time until we shift this massive machine, the armaments machine, the machine of modernizing the Polish army, the Polish military, from the traditional mindset symbolized by tanks, helicopters, and fighter jets, to a mindset more relevant to the contemporary theater of war, where we are dealing with so-called autonomous devices, whether they be drones, pilotless planes, robots, small unmanned submarines, etc. And it's clear that it's working. So we're shifting the thinking of all those responsible to a more modern approach. This takes time. The hardest thing is truly breaking routines and habits. Someone once said, and it's not about our generals, God forbid, but it illustrates the problem all over the world. Generals often want to win previous wars, but we're in a completely different war right now. Everyone, civilians, prime ministers around the world, weapons specialists, and military commanders, is rapidly trying to learn what this new type of warfare is all about. I also want to make it very clear. We will make decisions to shoot down flying objects without question when they violate our territory and fly over Poland. There's absolutely nothing to discuss here. This is when we're dealing with situations that aren't entirely clear. For example, the recent overflight of the Petro-Baltic platform by Russian fighter jets. But without any violation, as these aren't our territorial waters. We really need to think twice before deciding on actions that could trigger a very acute phase of conflict. That's why we are here, above all, in constant consultation with our allies. We are ready for any decision aimed at destroying objects that might pose a threat to us, such as Russian fighter jets flying over our territorial waters. But I also need to be 100% certain, and you understand correctly, I won't elaborate on this, that all allies will treat this exactly the same way we do. I need to be absolutely certain that if the conflict reaches such a critical stage, we won't be alone. And that's what matters to me. And with all due respect, a declaration or announcement from the Czech president is clearly insufficient here.
In nearby Gdansk, a nighttime alcohol sales restriction has been in effect since September 1st. In Warsaw, as we know, this restriction will not apply citywide. There will only be this pilot project in 2 districts. I'd like to ask you if you're satisfied with the stance of the Warsaw Civic Coalition and the political consequences of the confusion that arose after Rafał Trzaskowski withdrew from his project. And as has been said, whether this was simply a showdown between Marcin Kierwiński and Rafał Trzaskowski, a way to show the latter his place in the pecking order. Were you aware of this matter, and what action would you recommend in this matter, if you had any influence on it?
No, I'm not happy with what happened there for obvious reasons. I'd prefer to see local governments emulate those that consistently strive to combat the negative consequences of alcohol liberalism, because access to alcohol is truly widespread in Poland, and of course, in many places, especially in large Polish cities, the presence of intoxicated people at night, whether near homes or in city centers, is not a pleasant experience. Of course, it's hard for me to deal with such issues. I'm not responsible for Warsaw's local government, but I think it could have been handled much better. I don't think this political underpinning of any personal conflicts seems absurd to me. Please don't be offended. I've read all these speculations and guesses, but from what I know, and I don't deal with this on a daily basis, The cooperation between Mr. Truskowski and Mr. Kierwinski is good, and they coordinated the entire process. And yet it turned out the way it did. I didn't like the whole spectacle, of course.
Thank you very much, Mr. Prime Minister. One more question? Okay, one more question.
Mr. Prime Minister, a question from TVN24 editors, Marta Ulatowska, JSC. What is your assessment of the confusion surrounding the state tribunal? Isn't this the collapse of yet another state institution? Secondly, as more Western countries recognize Palestinian statehood, aren't you concerned that President Trump's stance will impact Ukraine and Polish security? And finally, regarding the UN General Assembly and the Polish delegation, is there any chance of an agreement between the President and the Minister?
Such an extensive question is one, to be honest.
3 in 1.
I counted 4. So where to begin? They flew to New York together, so they must be getting along there. The minister is there to help the president. I once argued about the plane 100 years ago, and I don't recommend this type of policy to anyone, neither on social media nor in public statements. And both the president and the minister should focus on meaningful cooperation. The General Assembly of the exalted nation is not a stage where any key issues are decided. Of course, I have participated in these assemblies many times and would not expect any fundamental decisions to be made there. But it's good to build Poland's reputation, and since they're there together, it should be in full agreement. I see there's no chemistry between the president and the foreign minister. Maybe they need a little more time to get things right. Regarding the gas, I've already spoken publicly about this. Terrible things are happening there, and the people responsible will have to face the consequences. There's no excuse for that. I've been here for years, and I've been very consistent. I will always advocate for the interests of the State of Israel and its confrontations with terrorism. There's nothing to discuss here either. We all know full well that this conflict began with Hamas's crime against the civilian population of Israel. We know that. We know the pressure Israel has been under for many, many years from Iran and some Arab states and terrorists. But what's happening in Gaza is absolutely unacceptable. It ruins the image and history of Israel's efforts and the State of Israel. The crime must be called by its name, and as I said, there is no justification for killing children or starving civilians. And we know that Hamas is responsible for this, or shares responsibility for it. And this is still no excuse for what Israel decided to do in Gaza itself. And it is also devastating to the efforts of that part of the international community, myself included, which has generally tried to always support and protect Israel in the confrontation with terrorism. I won't change my mind here, but it's just... it really transcends all these... it seems to transcend all these efforts and actions. And what about the lady from President Trump? Didn't she ask for provocation?
State Tribunal.
The State Tribunal is the same as other tribunals. My common folk have ruthlessly destroyed these institutions. They have tried to subjugate some, violating the Constitution, and sometimes even breaking the Constitution. They were very pleased with themselves. I looked at President Duda, how delighted he was with what President Kaczynski had done. They completely devastated the legal system in Poland. And then we have spectacles like the one with Mr. Andrzejewski and the near fight at the tribunal. But this isn't the first. This isn't the third case that shows what they've done to the justice system in Poland and what kind of people are currently playing the leading roles there. Is it Ms. Manowska or is it Mr. Andrzejewski? Everything. I don't want to use strong words, but there's no need for any comments from me here. We all see what's going on there, and I didn't take note.